So we're going to do an analysis of Bach Chorale BWV 18.5. But this time I've already just gone and written in all the chords because we want to spend our time looking at process of just determining keys and also some things that are going on that are kind of interesting in his writing. If you've come here looking for how do I figure out what the chords are, you'll have to wait to the next video for a different chorale or go back and look at any of the other ones. We do that. But here we start with them. We're still going to do the same thing in terms of looking at cadences to determine keys, then what's going on in the scales, and then our chord progression should be analyzable in that key, or starting in at a key and then quickly changing to the key of the cadence. And that's pretty typical. One thing I want to point out is what would we normally expect from a chorale. This is in G minor, key signature is such, and it's the way it's labeled. So that means we'd usually start in the key of G minor, and then we would quickly move to go up a fifth to D minor, which is the dominant. That's normal, right? But in the case of a minor, you might also go just up a third to the relative major, which would be B flat major. The other thing is that we almost certainly will end the chorale on a G major chord instead of a G minor chord, because Bach has a habit of, a custom of taking his minor ones and ending them with a major chord equivalent. We call that a Picardy third, but it's really modal borrowing from the relative major. And we find that that's the case down here. Our last chord right here, instead of being in G minor, we get this cadence right here from the A diminished chord right there. We get this, and then we get this, and instead of this, we get the B natural. That's normal, okay? But what we find here is that Bach is I don't know, he writes so much music that I think, you know, inventive and creative ideas pop up to people that are prolific. And so he's going to end on this G major chord, but have a look here. He starts on a G major chord. He ends his first section on a G major chord. And he starts his last two phrases on a G major chord as well. And so he really likes this idea of ending here, proliferating backwards to different places in here. Still is in G minor overall. However, he also is going to employ something different. At the end of this line, he's going to be in G minor, but he's going to give us the modally borrowed one chord right here, like he does at the end. Okay? So in order to get to here, instead of going 1 to 5 and then back to 1 in terms of G minor to D minor and then back to G minor, or G minor to B flat major and then back, what he does is he sets up a different relationship. He says, well, if I want to go up a fifth, what if I start in C minor? It's weird, most of these usually start in the home key, and if I go up a fifth, I end up in G minor. Okay? That's what he's done here. He starts his first phrase in C minor and ends up in G minor here for his first approach to changing keys, right? So by starting down on the subdominant, he can ascend a fifth like he normally would think in a normal piece of music, but end up in G minor, and then he can give us a modally borrowed one here and end up on the G major chord. Also, by starting in the key of C minor, he can start on a 5 chord and give us a G major chord right there. So this playing around in the subdominant gives him structural ways of getting to the G major chord at the end of the first line, and also a logical way to start on a G major chord, and he'll do that below as well. So that's kind of cool. Let's just look at the cadences now, figure out our keys, and go from there. One of the other reasons why we're having the chords already pre-done is that these can be quite long, and so by taking that element of the analysis out and having it pre-done, that will allow us to sort of zoom along a bit here. So cadences at the fermatas. First cadence, C, E flat, C, that's my C minor chord right there, and a G7 is like a 5 chord going to a 1. Normally when we see a dominant chord, it's 5, and it's going to take us to the 1. There are some exceptions in here as well, but this is 5, 7 right there, right? It's a nice suspension right there. It's a nice suspension right there. going to my 1 chord right there. I'm in C minor. In fact, I can put myself in C minor to begin with right here. And this is a perfect authentic cadence because root, root, and root as well. So that's a nice PAC, right? And this is very strange actually for the time period. It's odd to start in a key that's not your tonic key, or to end in a key that's not the same that you started in. So there we go, okay? Here, over here, we're in the key of G minor, right? I have a G minor chord right here, G, right? F sharp going to the G, right? It's like that, and then the D, and then the B flat. This is an appoggiatura from there, right? And then this will come down and become my 5/7 chord right there, going to my Picardy third or major version, modally borrowed of this. So this is a 1, and we bracket it and put MB for modally borrowed from the major key, right? That's this convention. This is my 1/6/4. It's my G minor chord, but it's in 6/4 inversion. And here's my 5/7 chord right there. And we bracket all of that and say this is the equivalent of a 5 chord in this key. We are in G minor. I'm just gonna put this here to remind us that. And then let me just put minor there. And we also have a root position 5, root position 1, root on top. Perfect authentic cadence right there as well. Okay. We stay on in the key of G minor to start with, right here. You can see that it's a G minor chord. But if we look at our cadence right here, and I'm gonna play this for you so you can hear. Actually, I'll play from the beginning right there. We start here like this, and then we start to move. Right? So it's starting in G minor, but moves to B flat chords and things. It's changing keys. Here you see the A flat has been introduced, and so this is going to be a 3 flat scale, 3 flat key, which would be C minor or E flat major. If you look here, we go E flat, B flat, dominant 7, that's my 5 chord, and there's my 1 chord right there. So this is 1, this is 5, this is 7, and this is my 1, but it's in first inversion right there. And root, root, and root, another perfect authentic cadence. But this time we're in E flat somewhere along here. Let's play this for you so you can hear that. The first chord of the phrase was there, but by the time we get over to the last measure there, we're like this. There's my A flat in the bass right there, and then we get a nice clean cadence, right? Okay. So knowing your cadences, you know, in so many theory programs, we memorize them. We kind of learn to maybe identify them, but hearing them just really confirms keys for you. Okay, let's go to the end of the line here. I've got a C minor chord, I've got a G7. We're back in the key of C minor. It goes from E flat back to C minor. This is my 1 chord, right? This is my 5 chord right there, another nice suspension, right? There's my 7th right there, so 5 with my 7. Root, 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 PAC. We're back in C minor, around here somewhere, okay? And then the last row, well, he starts off again from C minor. We've got my G major chord going into a C minor, so it looks like we're in C minor here, but if we look at our cadence, we have a C, E natural, B flat, and G. This is a C7 chord right here. This is my F chord, it's the predominant, so this is like 4, 5, 1, 4, 5, 7, and 1 in the key of F, right? And remember that we like moving from minor to relative major, and then to the dominant, which is +1 flat, or sorry, sharp, and then to the subdominant areas, which is +1 flat, okay? And so we listen to this right there. Although the beginning starts with this, I'm in C minor, right? It's like totally C minor. Then we get this. We get an F7 right here, which says, change the key maybe, but not really. So since we know we're in the key of F because of this cadence right here, this is going to be my 5 of 4 right there. We'll get to that. Okay, and then my last cadence we've already established. This is G minor through here. Oh, I guess I'm in I'm in F, like somewhere in here I move to F. Maybe not at the very beginning, but by the time I'm there. And then here we've established we're coming back to G minor, right? You can see that there's like a D7 chord right in there, and there's a G minor chord. So we are heading back to G minor, and this is my 5-7 chord right there. This is my 2 diminished 6 right there, and this is my 1, but it's major because it's modally borrowed, right? All right. Now that we know that, we can just go through and check out how the chords fit in. And I think there's maybe a couple things I want to point out about this. In addition to the cadences and using your ears, which I think are the two really big things, you can visually see what your ears are picking up when we add a flat here, right? Or we take away the B flat right there. It changes the key, these leading tones that get added in right there, right? They help us hear things. All right, so that's the first thing. The next thing is, I think what we're going to find here is there's a tremendous number of down by a fifth relationships, like circle of fifths, or just a single 5-1 relationship all through the piece, which is our strongest chord progression we could have. And Bach employs that all over the place. So I'll see if I can block some of these things off for you to see. G down to C is a fifth. C down to F is a fifth, right? Now we do step up, right? But then it's G down to C again, right? And then G down to C again. So it's a lot of down by fifths, right? And then here, G minor goes down to C, that's a fifth. C goes down to F, that's a fifth right there. And then we have to bail out, and then we go D going to G. That's a fifth right there, right? If we're here, B flat goes down to E flat, that's a fifth, right? And then E flat goes down to, B flat goes down to E flat, that's another fifth right there, okay? We get to here, G goes down to C, that's a fifth, C goes down to F, that's a fifth, and then we go at the cadence, 5-1 there as well. So, I mean, there are places where we step up instead, and that's pretty strong as well as far as chord progressions going, stepping up and things like that. But so many fifths. G going down to C, C going down to F, step down, F going to B flat, step up, C going to F, F goes to B flat, right? Step up, C, right? This is the sort of same idea as over here. We mess around a little bit, but then G goes down to D, right? And then E flat goes down to A. It's diminished, but that's because of the scale, right? And then A goes down a fifth, and then D goes down a fifth. So when we go like, why does it sound so good? Chord progressions are really strong. They really like pull you to the next chord and the next chord and the next chord. And you like, sometimes people go like circle of fifths, that's so basic. But it works so well that it becomes the standard. This is sort of a weird sort of analog side thing. Decades ago when I lived in Illinois, I learned how to make pies at a little diner that was famous for making their pies out in the cornfields and soybean fields. People come from all over the place. And I used to work there on the weekends helping out because I wanted them to teach me how to do some things they didn't know how to do. It was a trade of labor. I knew them through church, and they said, hey, if I come, how about will you show me how to do this and this? But they ended up showing me how to do all their pies. And I've learned how to do it, and I've done it for decades since. And every now and then I bake up a batch of pies, but it's a big recipe. It's like 12 to 15 pies at a time, and we give them away and things. I've done chocolate with, well, chocolate, but then chocolate with peanut butter, chocolate with mint, chocolate with caramel, chocolate with like all these different kinds of chocolate and something else. Inevitably, though, everybody just really likes chocolate. I mean, I can do all these other things, but chocolate just seems to work for so many people. When I say, what kind of pie would you like? They go like, chocolate, please. I personally am banana cream myself, and I think it's a great pie. But it works. You know, you could complain that it's basic chocolate, but works for so many people. Circle of fifths and descending chord progression by fifth to your cadences are so strong. They just are so good for us in terms of pulling the music together, making things work. And so if you're ever going like, oh, what do I do? Or I'm writing or something like that. Try going down by fifths to get to your cadence. It works so well. All right, cool. Last little other thing I wanted to point out here. Most of these things fit nicely in the key signature, but in our first phrase, this one does not right here. So if I'm in the key of C minor, this is my 5, first inversion. This is my 1. That's nice. That's a passing tone. Here's my 1/6 right there. I'm using lowercase Roman numerals because they're minor chords. And then this is weird right here. It's an F7. Normally when we see dominant 7s, we think 5 chords, right? 5 chord 1, 5 chord 1, that kind of thing. And that's truly the case. This is not the case here, because the reason why it's an F is we have this A natural here. Normally C minor has an A flat in it, but this is the melodic minor ascending form, which is going to go like raised 6, raised 7. So it's la, ti, do, right? And so as a consequence of that, although this is a 4 chord, it becomes a 4 dominant, not because of its function, but because of the scale creating that thing there. So there's a good example of when is a dominant not a dominant chord, right? When is a dominant or major minor 7 not a dominant function, right? When the melodic minor makes that. Here's my 5 chord again, right? Here's my 1 chord. There's a glorious suspension right there. You should listen to it and play it. There's my 5 chord, another suspension. There we go. Okay. All right. We're kicking over to G minor here for the next part. I think we heard this as a 1 chord right here. I'm going to play this for you because I want you to hear the suspension. Nice, nice, and then there. Okay, so our next chord is also C minor. It starts here. And in our ears, we're definitely in C minor. And this is also like a raised melodic minor sounding A. But then, right, we get a G minor chord, which is not what we'd normally expect. We would expect a G major or a G dominant chord here, but our B flat is right there and our B flat is right there. And this is my 1 chord in the key of G minor. You can either just say we changed key, or you could say 1 equals 4 in the key of G minor if you want to think pivot chords, passing notes. C minor, now this is a 4 chord in first inversion, passing, passing. This is my 4 chord in root position, okay? And then here, see, because it's A flat, or is it A natural? A flat, A natural. A natural, still I guess it's F A, I guess it's natural. I wonder if that's a typo. That seems wrong to me. Yeah, F7, right? Still going to be our subtonic 7, right? Okay. And then we'll get into our 1, 6, 4, 5, 1. Yeah, okay. Let's try here now. Now we were in the key of G minor. We had this G minor cadence right there, which goes like this. And then he gives us the picardy third. But on the next thing, he immediately says, I was kidding. We're really in the key of G minor right there, right? And we know we're headed to the key of E flat major. So let's think about this for a minute. This is my 1 in the key of, okay, in the key of G minor. And then if you want to, well, you call it a 3, although that's kind of rare, but we go to our relative major 3 right here, right? B flat, D, B flat, F, B flat chord. And that's my 5 chord right there. It's in first inversion. You can call it 3 equals 5, 6 in the new key. And then this is a root position 5 chord right there. That A flat is added in, which is my 7th, right? Even though it's kind of a passing note, it still feels like that. Here's my 1 chord, because 5 like to go to 1, passing, passing. Right, here's my C chord, that would be a 6 right there. I want to point out that these notes right in here form a D diminished chord, so that has a pseudo 7 function, which is why we're happy going to the 1 chord next, because even though it goes 6, 6 could go to 1, especially in an inversion, but it's stronger if you hear a 5-1 or a dominant tonic function, and that's what that's doing right there. And then we're good. Okay? Here we are starting again. We finished in E flat major. We start with an E flat major chord. Bach is doing this to us. Let's just play the B flat chord right here. So we're like this. Oh, wait, hold on. Gotta look over my keyboard. Sorry. Right. And then there. So the next chord after the fermata feels like we're still in the key. Right? But then it goes to a G7. And you could say, oh, it's a 5 of 6, right? But it cadences in this key. So we don't want to call it a 5 of 6. This is my 1 chord again, right? And we would think of this as the 5 of 6, right? But because we're cadencing in the relative minor, which is 6, we're just going to call this 5, and we're going to call that 6 right there. And we just changed our key, right, to C minor right there. And it's an F minor chord finally, so that's my 4. First inversion, root position right there. If you want to count that there as the 7th, you can. Again, this changes into a D diminished chord, which is like the 2 chord in this key, which is kind of nice because 2 chords like to go to 5. And there's my 5, 7, and 1 right there like that. Okay, again, strong chord progressions. And then finally, I'm just gonna make sure I'm still in camera. Hopefully this has all been in camera. Right, so I'm in C minor and I go 5, 1, just like I did at the very beginning of the piece. It's identical almost, except now he's coming down with a passing line instead of up with a passing line. Okay, and then this is an F minor 7 chord. Now, we're changing to the key of F, so this is definitely still my 4 chord because the A flat, right? And there's my 7 right there. And this becomes a D half diminished right there, which will take us to E flat, right? Because this is like the 7, half diminished 7 of E flat right there, right? And you can call E flat my 3 chord, if you like, the relative major. But then all of a sudden we get this F7 here. F is the 5 of B flat, which is my subtonic 7, right? So it's not a 4 chord like this one. It's a 5, 7 of 4, right? Sorry, not a 4, subtonic 7. And this is subtonic 7, but it's really just, you can go like subtonic 7, but it's really just 4 in the new key right there. And so this is where I'm in the key of F at that point. And then 4, 5, 1, okay? Again, like he's done before, he ends with a 1 chord, he starts with that same 1 chord. You think everything's fine. This is a B flat chord, so you think that's a 4 chord, and that's fine. And then all of a sudden it's a C minor chord. That's not fine because should be a C major or C dominant chord right there. So our ears immediately tell us something's gone awry. Like if we're here and we think we're in the key of F, it'd be like this, and then it'd be like this. And then if it was a proper 5 chord in the key, it would sound like this, right? With an E natural. But instead what we get is this. And then we go to our B flat chord, right? Right. And then we get this, right? Right? So, a couple things at play here. First off, because this is minor, it doesn't sound like we're in the key of F anymore. It also doesn't sound like we're in the key of C minor, because if we were in C minor, then that should have been an A flat, but it's an A natural, so it's not. This is telling us in our head we're going to the key of G minor, and that's confirmed even more by the following of the F sharp that's been put in there. So when we finally get to here, like this, it collapses into this, right, and then to there. Okay, so we change into a 4 chord right there, like that, and this is my 5, 7 right there, again in the key of G minor, right? You might say, well, how can this go to another 4 chord? This is a 4, 6. This is a substitute for 6 in deceptive progressions or deceptive cadences. When you first learn deceptive cadences, you hear 5 goes to 6. But then you'll find out later that 4 is almost the same. It has a C instead of a B flat. And it's sort of like a jazzier version of that. If you listen, you can kind of hear this. Like I'm going to set this up from here. Here's my B flat right here, right? You can hear this collapses into the C minor, collapses into the D7, and instead of going to a G, it goes to here, right? And then kicks back into the G after that, right? There. And then, so here's my 1 chord in first inversion. Then it's going to go to my 5 with my 7 there. And here's where I'll get my true 6 chord right there. So it's kind of like saying, we're going into G minor and here's my deceptive progression, but it's kind of bitter because of the C. And then let's do it again, 1, 5, and then this is a beautiful 1, and then cadence. And so when you hear this at the end, I'll play the last phrase for you. So here's my F. I think I'm in the key of F. Then I go to my B flat, yay, and then it collapses into a C minor. Your ears go, what's going on? And then it goes to the D7. You go, oh, I'm going back to G minor. But then it gives us the deceptive cadence right there, right? With the C natural. Oh, actually, it's there. Sorry, right? And then comes back out to the G, right? There, rises up. Here's my D again. Let's try this again, right? And then this time we'll get the proper 6 chord, which is just even more sweet, like that. And then we get our cadence right there, right? Followed by a Picardy third ending, which he normally does. It's really sweet. Okay. All right. Cadences and scales and how it feels in our ears. And then we try and track backwards from those cadences to see strong chord progressions. Then we see how it's negotiated to get from the key we thought we were in to over here, like that as well. Yeah. And the next step, if you have this, is you learn the chord progressions, you learn what you're listening for, and that's work afterwards though. This is the sort of the pre-work, and then afterwards you listen and you go, look, oh, I hear these things, like, let's see. Well, like here, if we take this phrase here, like this, and we know that we're in C because we had this right there, you can hear, and then C minor, right? Now, what you do is you start to listen to this with these chords in front of you as you memorize it. And all of a sudden it's like, oh no, something's different. As soon as you hear that there, you know you're no longer going to be in the key of C minor, right? Even though the C minor chord is real prevalent, it's not in the right place, and there's no A flats going on, right? And then we get our cadence figure. You can hear this. And you have Picardy third. That for me is the beauty of doing this analysis, is that now we can listen to this, and the listening with this knowledge cements our ear training, and we start to hear it in real time. And then you hear it in other pieces and you go like, oh, I've heard this before. He's doing this, this, and this. That's especially true like when you listen here at the end here. This last phrase for me, I go like, oh, I'm on my F chord right there. Then I go there. But then I go like, fake out, that's not right. And then here, oh, C minor, and then it's like, this is deceptive cadence right here. But it's not quite as sweet as it should be, so that tells me that it's the 4 in first inversion. And then we're going to try it again. Okay, there's my 5 chord here. Should go to a 1 chord, but this time it's that's the proper 6 chord, right? And then 2, right? We go 2. It's actually half diminished because of the G coming through here. And then, and Picardy third is one of the first things you go like, oh, I recognize that sound because it's so distinct. All right. I love this chorale. I love that he is pushing his key boundary limits, and he's thinking about if I'm going to end with this, well, how can I start with it? And how can I make it relevant without subverting all our expectations and saying I'm not in G minor and clearly we're in G minor, you know, here, although he surprises us, and then here, and then there, and the other places are places of adventure or mechanical setup. It's neat. All right, that's it.